There's actually quite a number of reasons for that, and I do honestly agree with a number of them. Firstly, the game has some performance issues. Even after the game's final update, the game has a lot of frame rate problems and lacks cosmetic polish in many areas, especially the cutscenes. It seems like the game's camera does not know how to cut without something loading in late, and it's never something subtle like a character model not being there for one frame. I'm talking textures and objects that take up almost half of the screen, taking seconds to load in after they're already on camera. It looks terrible, and it's incredibly distracting. The frame rate issues are really on and off. It's mostly apparent during the outdoor village segments in chapters 3 and 4, and there's a couple of times where it'll slog again, like this section here, but the frame rate does learn to behave, and the game will run fine most other times. This is all based on my experience playing it on PS4, mind you. I can't speak for the Xbox One or PC versions, though I have heard that the PC version also has a lot of problems. Whether or not they've been fixed since release, I really don't know. And then there's also the aspect ratio. This was a pretty big deal when the game first came out. The game launched with this extra wide theatrical aspect ratio. I thought this was really cool at first. I'm a filmmaker myself, so it was something that I appreciated, but as I played the game more and more, I started to realize that this ratio just isn't practical. I remember reading in an interview, I can't find it for the life of me, so forgive me if this is not even real and I imagine this or something, but I vaguely recall Mikami saying something like, it makes you feel more claustrophobic, not being able to see the ceiling or the floor. On top of that, he wanted the game to be more cinematic, like a horror movie, hence them adding a grain filter as well. So yeah, while I can understand and appreciate that, it just makes the game harder to play. You don't get a tall enough vertical view, and it makes objects harder to interact with. Luckily, they did realize this months down the road after a lot of player feedback, and they have long since patched the game with an option to turn the boxing off, so this issue has long since been resolved. Alright, so here is the big giant thing everybody hates about this game. The story. It has been called nonsensical by so many people that have played this game, but I kind of really like it. Yeah, it is dumb, and there's a lot of plot holes, but I mean, I do enjoy this game's plot, believe it or not, so because of that, I'm gonna try to explain the whole thing. Skip here if you don't want to hear the story, spoilers, obviously, but yeah, I'm gonna do my best to try to make sense of this plot. Here goes. Okay, so the reason you blip between areas with no rhyme or reason is because you're actually in a simulation. Kind of. Sebastian, Joseph, Kidman, Connolly, every person you meet are all hooked up to a machine that combines their brains into a collective consciousness called STEM. The host is Ruvik, the game's villain. Since he's the host, he's the only one with direct influence on what happens in this world, kinda like a lucid dream, but it's only